Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about the new Canon Powershot V10 that Canon just announced. I haven't gotten my hands on it, but we're going to look at it on paper. That joke never gets old. Okay, so this camera is intended for vloggers. I'm very confused about what Canon thinks that vloggers do, because they need things that Canon doesn't think they need. And we'll get to that in a minute. But you have to evaluate cameras based on what their intended audience is, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at how this would work for vlogging, and then we're going to compare it to the closest competitor, in this case, my iPhone. The reason is I think that's the best way to actually evaluate this camera. Is it worth your money, and does it do what it's supposed to do? So I want to start off positive. I want to talk about the things I think Canon did well, because I think that's important. But that's not where the video is going to stop. And unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit of a rant. So please stay with me. It'll be a nice rant, but I don't think Canon gets it. But here, stay focused on the positives for a second here. Here's the advantages. The wide angle lens, this lens on this camera is 19 millimeter, which is perfect for vlogging. I think that's right in the sweet spot. Good job, Canon. This has a bigger sensor, which in theory should lead to more light on the sensor, which should make it handle low light situations better, and it should lead to more background blur if you want that. So that's a nice advantage that everybody likes in their cameras when they can get it. Okay, the mics, the microphones on this camera, they're good enough. They really are. Now, with an asterisk, they're good enough for just picking up the phone, picking up the camera and just talking to it, okay? That's what you needed. This form factor, I actually like it. At first, I thought it was weird, but the way it folds up, there's a screen that folds over. We'll get to this in a second, but you can see the screen. That folds back behind it like a 1990s cell phone, and it slides right in your pocket. This is kind of to scale, so you can get a sense of, I think it's a little bit bigger than this, but it's a good form factor. It's really smart the way they've integrated a built-in stand. So there's a stand that folds out of the bottom, which of course you can't see because this isn't a real camera, and it's very unfiddly to work with. So you grab this and you go, and so that's what makes it worth keeping two cameras in your pocket at the same time, because this is easy to use, and at the end of the day you're going to get that sweet color science, which I still think is the best in the business. Nikon's closed, I'm learning that, but like this, I like Canon color science, and that ultimately at the end of the day would be the reason why you wouldn't just go with your iPhone. So that's what Canon did right, and it's important to talk about what Canon did right. But when you compare it to its closest alternative that people already have in their pocket, things start to fall apart. Now I'm going to start off by saying this is the iPhone Pro Max. Okay, the reason why I think this is a fair comparison is because even though this is an expensive cell phone, if you take the cell phone that's probably in your pocket and add the price of this to it, which you wouldn't be buying if you got an iPhone Pro Plus, you'd probably come out ahead. So Canon has a wide angle lens that's the perfect focal length, okay? This has literally 5 different lens options, 4 actual cameras, and then a digital crop that looks exactly as good as the non-crop version. So 5 lenses versus 1 well-sized lens. While this has a bigger sensor, I've done side-by-side comparisons between the Powershot with the same sensor and the main lens on the iPhone in 4K 60, okay? And in low light, I don't know what's going on. I think this has a very big or very low aperture on it, lets in lots of light for the size of this sensor, and I think they do some serious voodoo and noise reduction. But this looks better in low light than this sensor did, at least in the G7X. Okay, so all right, so we're losing advantages here in a hurry. The onboard mics, they do sound good if there's nobody around you talking, and if you're not in any wind. Okay, so how are you going to add a microphone to this camera? Well, there's a couple ways to do it, and the main one, which I think Canon intends you to do, is to buy a small rig cage. Okay, So you strap on this cage, and again, all of a sudden now your camera is getting bigger. Okay, then you strap on all the little bits that go with it. So to block the wind, they want you to put these wind muffs on here. Okay, well, now I can't see the screen. So this flip around screen that makes this form factor so good is all of a sudden not looking near as good as this does, you know. You have to attach not only attach the cage, which again makes this bigger and bulkier, but you have to attach a hot shoe adapter to the outside. So now you've got this stuff all hanging off your tiny phone, and you know, if you want to not scratch your lens, you're gonna need the lens cap. I don't know why Canon asked Small Rig to make a lens cap. I hope it's because that lens is not inclined to scratch, but it's really weird that Canon didn't make a lens cap. Anyways, at the end of the day, in order to get this functional, where just from the wind department, you have to add 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4, and if you carry the lens cap, 5 pieces. So you might as well take a bag with you, and all of a sudden this is starting to get to be a hassle. Now, I'm not blaming Small Rig for this. In fact, Small Rig is I love Small Rig. They make great stuff. They're the ones that are like solving problems here. I just don't know how Canon got to the point where they supposedly designed this camera for vlogging, right? But they didn't include like a wind muff, just a wind. Like, we figured this out. Sony figured this out a long time ago. They have a little wind muff that slides in over the top of the camera and pops out. And this, on top of it, you know, you're going to have to keep up with 2 wind muffs here. You have to like magnetically stick these magnets on the top of the camera and then attach your wind muffs to those magnets and hope they don't fall out, or you don't lose them in your pocket, or they don't send them through the wash. I don't understand. This camera is not complete. It's just not complete. Unless of course you're like just an indoor vlogger and you only vlog by yourself, then it's going to be like this lady she's in a library vlogging is like a huge genre. It's growing, and clearly this lady, well, actually she might be doing drugs or something, but the point is she's having a good time by herself indoors vlogging. Normal vloggers don't do any of that. They have to have all that. You're going to have all this crap if your footage is going to be worth a darn. So that brings me to my main rant. Canon doesn't know what vloggers do. Canon associates vlogging with being an amateur. Okay? They think that vloggers are just kids who go to Disneyland and film everything, and they don't really care what their footage looks like. And here's how we know this. All of these advantages are negated except for Canon Color Science. Okay? Canon Color Science is still there. But image IQ is a whole nother problem. Here's why. Yes, you may get the Canon Color Science, but they didn't make this out of a sensor that can autofocus worth a crap. So you spend all day filming yourself and your family or telling a story, and then you get home and you look at it, and half of what you shot is not in focus. There's no vlogger on this planet that is going to accept this. This is why vloggers switch cameras altogether, because they know that Sony and the other Canon cameras, except for these that are intended for the very people that use autofocus the most, are not going to stand for cameras that don't autofocus. Again, Canon figured this out. But I don't know why they think that vloggers or people who film themselves or people that video out in the world are okay with this. This will hunt the entire time you are using it. Canon, come on, you're better than this. And you've gotten feedback about this. I don't care if it's a $400 camera. Get it right. How much more could it possibly cost? No one's going to enjoy using this if it doesn't focus. So then you're back to locking focus on yourself. You set it up, you lock the button, press the button, lock your focus, and then you talk to your camera. How are you going to lock focus when you can't freaking see the screen because you had to use an aftermarket wind muff to make sure that you could hear anything you had to say, which by the way, doesn't fit in my pocket anyways, because I have all this crap and this huge bag of stuff I have to bring with me to make this work. Okay, I'm exaggerating here. I am exaggerating here. But it's the advantage to this camera is the form factor. And that advantage is gone. It has a built-in stand in the bottom. It has the one lens. It has, like, again, the microphone, the flip screen. It folds up, puts in your pocket. That is the selling point. This is what people will buy if it works. But this doesn't work. So now let's compare this. Let's compare this to the iPhone. And I mean, this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt, Canon. I'm sorry, but you need to hear it. It's for your own good and our own good. This has phase detection autofocus. You can trust it. It wasn't always like that. Autofocus on this is great. This has 4K 60. This has 4K 30. This has 120 frames per second slow motion. This does not. This shoots time lapses. If this does, it's not written on the B&H website. This has 5 different lenses that I can switch to with a touch of a button. Holy crap, that's amazing. This has 1. This holds a charge all day. This does not. No, this does not have a micro SD card that you have to screw around with. I would deal with that in the V10 if I had to, because the camera's so small, but I don't prefer it. This is compatible with AirPods, so you can monitor your audio in real time. This doesn't have a headphone jack, so you have to wait till you get home to see what things sound like. At least they both have microphone jacks, so that's good. But you get to monitor your footage and your audio on a big old 7-inch, 6.5-inch screen that's plenty bright, even in the daytime. Vloggers want that. I swear to you, vloggers want that. They're interested in having their videos look and sound good and knowing if they need to reshoot stuff. Nobody spends all day working on a video out in the sun, which, by the way, vloggers go outside. We've talked about this. They're not all in libraries. Nobody wants to spend that time and then get back to the editing bay and see the footage sucks. Even if they're just making it for their families, which most aren't. You know, the vloggers that we know about, they're making it for the world. But even if you're making it for your family, when you go back and look at this in 20 years, you want it to look good. You want it to focus. You want it to sound good. This is basic stuff. Come on, Canon. If you're making this for vloggers, make it for vloggers. But back to the list. I'm not even close to done. This is good enough in low light for most things. It's better than this. Like I said, this is easy to use. I can hand it off to a family member. They'll know how to use it. This may take some getting used to. This has no record limit. I don't know if this is going to have a record limit, but I know it's going to run out of battery life before too long. This is waterproof. You can take it in a swimming pool if you need to. This has MagSafe, so I can mount it to stuff in my car. This is more socially acceptable to use because anytime people are used to seeing cell phones, you can do your editing right here on your phone. Now, I know that that's not what this camera does, but this one does. This one does, right? And it requires me to spend or carry nothing more than what I already have with me. You didn't do it. You didn't pass the bar. This is not a better vlogging camera than a good cell phone. And again, for the price you would spend adding this vlogging camera to your setup, you can just get a nicer cell phone. Canon, you may sell these, but you missed the mark. You're better than this. Make better cameras.